Hi, thank you for your interest in our work. My name is Panos Kourtesis and I will present our paper, Cyber Sickness, Cognition and Motor Skills, the effects of music, gender and gaming experience. Previously, relaxing music has been seen to decrease both nausea and simulator sickness. Similarly, pleasant music was found to decrease motion sickness intensity. However, none of these studies was a VR study or examined cyber sickness. Cyber sickness has shown significant negative effects on verbal working memory as well as on psychomotor skills. Yet all the previous studies examined cyber sickness and performance only after the exposure to VR and not during the immersion in VR. Previous studies have indicated that female users experience more intense cyber sickness. However, there are some conflicting results which postulate that there is no difference between female and male users. Moreover, game experience was also been suggested that may modulate cyber sickness intensity, where higher gaming experience facilitates a resilience, yet some studies do not find an effect. It is still unclear what are the reasons for observing or not the gender differences, as well as whether the game experience has an effect on cyber sickness. We recruited 39 participants, 20 female and 70 male, with a mean age of 25 years old. For the comparison between female and male users, we consider 32 participants balanced in terms of gender. Before the exposure, the participants were introduced to VR systems. Also, they responded to a questionnaire. An eye tracking and interpupillary distance calibration was preceded to the VR exposure. During the immersion, the participants completed a baseline assessment of cyber sickness intensity and of their cognitive and psychomotor abilities. The same assessment was repeated 3 more times after each ride. During the ride, a joyful, calming or no music was offered. The rides were similar to a roller coaster where linear and angular accelerations were taking place, destined to induce cyber sickness to the participants. The participants were always in a standing position, where in VR they were standing on a platform. The participants evaluate the intensity of 6 symptoms of cyber sickness by using a 3D questionnaire with a slider. The cyber sickness in VR questionnaire was used, which examines nausea, vestibular, and oculomotor symptoms. The CSQ VR also includes eye tracking metrics, which allow us to measure the pupil size as well as the reading time. Standardized tasks, VR standardized tasks were used. The verbal working memory was examined by the DigitSpan task, the visuospatial working memory was examined by the Corsi block task, the psychomotor skills were assessed by the Derry legal reaction time task. The hypotheses were that 1. The calming music will have a significant effect on the intensity of nausea symptoms. The joyful music will have a significant mitigating effect on overall cyber sickness. 3. Cyber sickness will substantially decrease verbal working memory abilities and reaction times. 4. Gaming, VR or computing experience will have a mitigating effect on cyber sickness. 5. Female participants will experience more intense cyber sickness symptoms compared to male. Also, we had exploratory aims. We explored whether cyber sickness could also have effects on reading ability and or pupil size. 2. We explored whether the gender differences in cyber sickness will be explained by IT skills such as gaming experience. The ANOVA analysis revealed a significant main effect of music on nausea and overall cyber sickness intensity. Both calming and joyful music decrease the intensity of nausea symptoms compared to the no-music condition. However, only the joyful music significantly decreased overall cyber sickness. Therefore, both hypotheses 1 and 2 are confirmed. Mixed regression model analysis revealed that cyber sickness decreased performance of verbal working memory and increased reaction time, postulating slower psychomotor skills. Similar results were observed in the eye tracking metrics. Cyber sickness increased reading time, indicating a slower reading speed. Finally, more intense cyber sickness decreased the diameter of the pupils, hence both hypothesis 3 and exploratory aim 1 are confirmed. Comparably, Mixed regression model analysis revealed that only gender game experience predicted the intensity of cybersickness. Notably, game experience predicted the intensity of both vestibular symptoms and overall cybersickness. The results show that higher game experience indicates a higher resilience to cybersickness, therefore the hypothesis for is confirmed. Compared to female users, male users had a substantially higher game experience. The female user experienced significantly more intense cybersickness. However, when the game experience was considered as a covariate, then non-significant differences were observed between female and male users in terms of cybersickness. Therefore, the exploratory aim 1, aim 2 is confirmed, while the hypothesis 5 is rejected. We observe that calm music mitigates nausea symptoms, which agrees with the studies in patients. However, calming music did not mitigate overall cybersickness. This outcome disagrees with the finding in motion sickness studies, which may be explained due to the difference between cybersickness and motion sickness. On the other hand, joyful music did mitigate both nausea and overall cybersickness, which aligns with the findings in motion sickness studies. Joyful music may be effective because it facilitates a distraction from the stimuli that induce cybersickness. Also, it may be that the elicitation of a positive emotional state provides a resilience to cybersickness. This also agrees with the observation on pupil size. In eye tracking studies, positive emotion has been associated with larger pupil size and negative emotion with smaller. We saw significant effects of cybersickness on both cognitive and psychomotor abilities. Cybersickness decreased verbal working memory, but not visuospatial working memory, which agrees with the observation in previous VR studies. Interestingly, cybersickness also decelerated reading speed. These two results align with the suggested association between verbal working memory and reading skills. Finally, cybersickness decreased psychomotor speed, where this deceleration mainly attributed to the decrease of the speed of attention. This also agrees with the previous VR studies on cybersickness. We observed that only gender and game experience predicted cybersickness, while other factors like VR experience failed to predict cybersickness. However, we should note that participants don't have a high level of VR experience, that further research is required. Regarding the gender difference, we indeed observed that female users experience higher intensity of cybersickness, which agrees with the findings of other VR studies. However, these differences were attributed to game experience and not to interpupillar distance. Note that every participant went through calibration of interpupillar distance for eye tracking, and everyone reported a comfortable IPD. Moreover, we observe that higher gaming experience appears to associate with a higher resilience to cybersickness. This outcome also agrees with the findings of a VR study with a large sample size. Finally, we observe that female and male users with similar levels of game experience similar levels of cybersickness, which further supports that the gender differences in cybersickness were due to the differences in gaming experience. So the main conclusion of this study: music, especially joyful, appeared a cost-effective and efficient method for mitigating nausea and overall cybersickness. Cybersickness was found to affect only verbal working memory, but not non-verbal working memory. Given the important role of verbal working memory in higher cognitive functions, this effect of cybersickness will be considered in VR applications for educational training or clinical purposes. Pupil size was substantially affected by cybersickness, and it can thus be considered as a biomarker of cybersickness. Higher game experience was associated with lower cybersickness and explained the differences between female and male users in terms of cybersickness. Game experience should be appropriately evaluated and considered in future studies on cybersickness. Thank you for your attention.